You too.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Developed with Agility, talking about the importance of leadership culture in 2024 with myself and Arif.
That's all right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's a pleasure to
Thank you
be
for
back
joining.
again. It's been a while, hasn't it,
It's
TK?
been a while. Yeah, we haven't. It's actually been 2 weeks and one day,
Oh,
Arif.
it
So
feels it feels like it's been a
I
month.
know, right?
It's
So
been
much
so
has happened
long.
to us, right, in this
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
So I completely understand you. Hopefully, our wonderful viewers also had a wonderful time, because today we're going to talk about something important. In fact, what we'll be talking about is something that we've talked about on this wonderful exhibition that we've been in, the world of learning.
Yes, that's right. So it will be interesting to see what people. Yeah, well, we'll share our thoughts
We
on it. You're
will.
gonna, and then we'll see how people react to it. I suppose,
Yes,
isn't
we
it? As
will.
we always
So,
do.
let us know where you're coming from. We can see quite a few people tuning up. So, give us a wave. Let us know where you're hailing from, and we'll start our talk about the prioritization of leadership culture in 2024. A very important topic. So, Arif, why did we decide to talk about this today?
Well, good question. I think we've been. It's something that's something evolving for us. It's
Hmm.
been an ongoing topic, hasn't it? For how many months now?
Yeah,
We've been focusing on focus. Excuse me, I can't get my words out. Focusing on it for a while. My English is all over the place. But I think importantly, with constant change, constant evolution, so much going on, um, leadership culture is vital for organizations to succeed through all this constant change. For us, we're really passionate about it, and
hmm.
yeah, we think it's an important priority when it comes to your learning and development plans for 2024, isn't it, TK?
So let's not spoil it for everyone. But
Yeah.
before we do so, we are going to, as always, introduce ourselves, which we always do, the humble associates. So that's us. But we'd like to know more about you. So let us know who you are. If you're an L&D professional or a leadership development professional, which, learning and development or leadership development, put an A in. B, if you're a leader. C, if you're an agile practitioner. And D, if you're just a wonderful human being. Um, we will not wait, but we'll address it later on because there's usually a bit of a delay. So let's just see. So the first thing we wanted to discuss is like, I don't know about you, Arif, but for me, it's quite hard to be optimistic about 2024. It
Mm.
just doesn't seem to be a great sounding year. There's so much going on in the world. We all can see it. And I think a lot of people are pessimistic, aren't they?
Yeah. No, I can empathize with that. I feel the same. It's difficult to be positive. It's difficult to feel like things are going to improve. Um, Perhaps depending on where you are from the world, it may
Hmm.
be different. But here, from I suppose, sitting in the West, sitting in the UK, it's challenging. But also just looking at world events, how things are evolving, what's going on. It's a very challenging start to 2024.
Definitely quite challenging. And I think, everywhere in the world, it's just interesting. I personally thought that, what is going to happen when we were in the depths of the pandemic in 2020, 2020, I thought to myself, well, what's going to happen is we're going to have like a victory day. After the end of World War II, everyone was like enjoying themselves. It's a great parade, a great party. But sort of what happened wasn't that, right? The
Mm.
the world has gone into some kind of a challenging time. People were very pessimistic. Obviously, in the UK, we've got Brexit biting us. There you go, right? Learn on the mistakes. But it's really difficult to be optimistic. But also, unfortunately, a lot of the organizations aren't optimistic about their outlook. So, what we want to talk about is why we think is the case and what to do so it gets a bit better. And what we think is necessary in this situation is strengthening your leadership culture, because our leadership culture and its strength is the main challenge we're facing.
Mm.
All right. So looked through quite a few. We've looked through quite a few studies, especially
Mm.
the HR L&D trend study from Blanchard, 2024, and
Yeah.
we have found that the biggest problem that the L&D people and HR faces is actually the lack of skill in the leadership bench. Why do you think that is, Arif? Have you seen it yourself?
Well, I think we know conversations we have with many organizations. Some of the things they tell us is that a typical challenge or recurring challenge is leaders become promoted. Sorry, leaders who get promoted into positions of leadership um, don't always possess the skills that are needed by an organization to thrive in these constantly evolving, volatile, challenging times. They may have very good, operational, technical skills when it comes to their core job function, perhaps, but when it comes to knowing how to build teams, build high-performing teams, for instance, or lead their people through change and volatility. All of these, important facets to the role. They lack the skills and they lack the ability to do that.
It's a very good point, and we can clearly see that. In my personal opinion, what I can see is the fact that the lack of appropriate leadership is actually causing the challenges we can see in the world. In 2023, our organizations and all our climate, political, economic, but also like climate, the challenges we are suffering because of lack of great leaders. And it's quite a challenge, I believe. And we would like to make a case why in 2024 you need to put a lot of emphasis and effort and, dare I say, investment in leadership development and how to do that. So today's talk will be all about that.
Indeed. Can't wait to get stuck in.
Well, so you probably know this quote, Arif. This is my favorite quote. I'm repeating it quite a bit. So Robert Henry, he was a wonderful painter, a realist, and he said this thing. So how do you interpret it, Arif?
I think we've been talking about this when it comes to leadership culture for a while, isn't it? And in terms of our belief that what is the responsibility of the leadership role? Is it to actually, force the change to happen, to make something different happen? Yes, we want to see, different outcomes from how leaders behave and how they lead, etc. But the critical thing for us is their role and responsibility in the culture creation aspect. We believe that it's leadership's, the culture of an organization stems from leaders and how they behave, how they act. So therefore, they must take that responsibility on their shoulders and create what is the right culture for that organization. I think that's where we're coming at it from, isn't
And
it?
I think I do agree. And I personally believe that there is like a very virtuous circle that you can see in this quote, which is, in my mind, you can't make great leaders without a great leadership culture.
Yeah.
The aim is to make an amazing leadership culture that will help great leaders emerge.
Yes.
What I see ourselves helping organizations do is to create a culture which makes the great leadership that we all need inevitable. And that's how I interpret this quote and maybe paraphrase it for leadership development. But as you said, Arif, yourself, it's all about the first and the most important job of a leader is to create culture. Many people say that it's everyone's job to create culture. So why do we think it's the leader's primary job to do that?
Well, because people miss this, I think, and it's something that people talk about, but without maybe thinking through enough detail, which is that the culture of an organization comes from the top ultimately. So it's the unwritten rules, it's the unsaid things, it's the things that are ignored, or the things that are allowed to happen, the things that are allowed to have, all of that, all of those behaviors, actions, which form the culture, which tell employees, which tell staff how they can behave, what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. So through the permissibility of things, the impermissibility of things, the allowance of things, or however you want to describe it, that leaders do, and how they act, it forms the kind of rules and the general, trends of an organization. That's probably how I would describe it.
It's a very good point, Arif. And personally, I call it modeling the right behavior. So,
Yes.
a job of a leader is to show what is it that's, as you yourself said, permissible. How is it that we do things around here? But I don't mean processes and rules. I mean, what is the culture that an organization has? I'm
Yeah.
sure that many of you, if you're leaders or you leadership development practitioners, you would actually see that what's important is, for instance, when an employee gets inducted, right? An employee comes to work the first day, and they might be experienced, they might have experienced cultures and organizations, but what they definitely doing is they're opening their eyes and they're looking at how are things done here. What is the culture? And the first thing they're looking at is how does their line manager behave? What is it? Because they're the person, the leader that they're looking up to see what is expected of them, both in terms of performance, but
Yeah.
also in the terms of the behavior itself, right? So the culture. So as Arif said, the culture comes from the top. But I would say, Arif, that the people that are most impactful when it comes to culture is line leaders. So it's not necessarily the lowest of the ranks, so individual contributors, team members, not the highest ones, because we often are used to like CEOs and top leaders saying things that are not always attached to reality or the reality of everyday work for many people. But the line leaders, the middle out, the frozen. Why do people hate middle leaders so much if they're so important? That's always a conundrum to me.
They get it. They get the unfair kind of treatment, don't they? In
Mm,
some ways, and it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of thing. And
yeah, they're the
it's
coalface,
like,
aren't they?
yeah, they're the coalface. They're the ones who actually have to, enact or enforce what leaders above, senior people who don't, maybe for whatever reason, interact day to day with the staff constantly. So they're the ones who have to implement,
Yeah,
whatever the changes are, whatever the edicts are. Staff further down the chain then see them being the face of the organization more than those senior leaders who make the decisions, right? They become the nameless, faceless people, especially in larger corporates. That's how it works. So
that's
so
true.
that's one aspect. And so then, and on the other side, they probably themselves feel like, well, we don't have, maybe I wish I had a bit more autonomy. I wish I had a bit more control in terms of how I do things, how I set my team up, how I decide on what we should be working on, rather than being, at the whims and desires of the people above me. I'm sure that's part of it. I think that has to be part of it for
There's a
many,
lot, and
especially.
obviously,
Yeah.
I remember when I myself have been promoted to line manager way back when, and the head of HR told me, "Okay, so from this point on, you're actually representing the company." And I remember I
Yes.
wasn't promoted alone. I was with other people, and clearly I remember the look on their faces, like, okay, it's like something significant has changed. I wish, well, and I can't complain. I had been trained a bit after the fact when I was promoted. I would love to have been trained before and know the things I know now, or have the opportunity to get trained by people like myself now. But more on that a bit later, because there is a way we think is very beneficial to leadership, which we call agile leadership. We believe that agile is the leadership model of the future. So, Arif, that's an interesting one. Agile being a leadership model, how did we come up with this idea?
Well, I mean, so it's something that's evolved, isn't it, over
Mm,
time? I think for us, we see that if we go back to Agile's origins and the kind of call out for something better,
hmm.
that's what the original
That's a good
co-creators
point. Yeah.
wanted. They wanted to call out to a new way of thinking, a new way of working that promised something far better than what they had experienced. And implicit in that, I think, was this call that we need to lead differently, not just be different in how we're working and how work is done, but there was an implicit call that leadership has to be different as well. So,
Indeed.
you know,
Yes.
we want to behave in a way that, I suppose, makes possible or makes it easier for this new way of working, this alternative way of working can become a reality.
It's a good point, Arif. But I would like to ask our wonderful viewers, who does, if you know what Agile is and you've encountered it and you think you have a decent grasp, say yes. If you think that nothing about agility or very little, say no. So do you know what agility is properly? Yes or no? Let us know in the chat. But I'm guessing we'll get some no's, which is agility may be new for some people. So Arif, I have a challenge for you if you'd like to pick it up. How would you explain agility in no more than 3 minutes?
Ooh, okay. Well, I hinted at it earlier. This is a 20-year-old call out for a new way of working. Origins date back to the software industry. Um, but the focus, I think, is on how work should be organized, how people should be organized around work, in an effort to become, I suppose, for work for the outputs that of work to be, to be delivered in a way that is, I suppose, responding to change around, responding and being adaptive to the change that exists around the work itself. For also people to have to be invested in the work itself, so to have more say, to have the power to make decisions on how work happens,
Mm.
what the output should look like. Um, Also, I suppose, for the input of the people receiving the work to be considered more than what maybe had been done before. So, whatever
Mm.
work you're doing, you know, who are you delivering it for? What do they want it for? What are their purposes, their needs, their goals? That has to be has to have a greater stake in how you deliver the work you're doing. So I think, as I said, so to recap a few things: who you're delivering the work to, that needs to be of greater input. How you organize yourselves around the work and
Hmm.
making sure that the people doing the work have greater decision making power, and that the way work happens is through the unit of a team. And then also, as I said, that, the when it comes to the output itself, it's done in a way that is iterative. It's done in a way that is responding to change, and it's adaptive in its own way, so that the work ends up being more close to what the needs of those people receiving the work want it to be. That's how I would describe it,
Well,
without
I think it's quite a decent
resorting
description.
to software analogies.
Yeah. I personally, if I were to put it simpler, it's a philosophy of work that emphasizes collaboration and change for the modern times, right? If we're in a VUCA environment, if there's a lot of change, if there is a lot of improvement needed, agility is your friend. And it's a leadership model because, as you might have heard, if you've answered yes to the question, it is very it's not that easy to implement. And a lot of people say that it requires management buy in. And
Mm,
over the years of helping organizations implement agility and embrace it, we have found that it's actually a leadership model. Leaders have to get it first before other people do, because they need to create the culture and a way of leading, a way of working that would help agility grow. It doesn't grow on its own. Sadly, when we're looking at how organizations work nowadays, for instance, we worked with a client today and people said, well, we tried getting into agility, but our organization isn't agile, isn't ready for it. And I think this emphasizes the fact that your leaders aren't yet there or they haven't made the effort. So we ourselves are actually focusing on developing leaders so they can lead in this way of work. But what's really interested is what I think is interesting is how we think a leader needs to be leading to be called an agile leader. So that's an interesting one. It comes from our experience. So here's the list of qualities of an agile leader. We worked quite hard and we've spoke about quite a few times. And the first quality of an agile leader is that the agile leader reflects and acknowledges their own impact on others and the work they do. Why is this the first one, Arif?
Well, I think the power of it goes back to the self-awareness. I think
Mm,
we for a leader to be able to lead, I think, in an effective manner, first thing is knowing yourself. How do you lead currently? What is your typical leadership stance? If you haven't done the work to understand your leadership stance, your style, what happens when you are in a position of stress, what happens when you are in a position of feeling content,
mm.
what changes. If you haven't done any of that, then it's difficult to know what you need to improve, how you can be better. So this is a really critical step. So, and then following on from that, of course, is then the ongoing work of reflecting and learning
Yeah,
from your, not just your own mistakes, but also from the environment around you, and understanding how you, the impact of your decision making, the impact of how you communicate, how you collaborate, all of that uh, creates learning points. So understanding and being aware of what's happening when you do all of that and all those touch points, then reflecting on it, creating that practice, and then realizing or understanding through your self-awareness, okay, this is what I need to do better on, this is what I need to adjust, this is what I need to tweak on, so I can become an effective leader. Critical skill, really, really critical skill.
quite a good point. And as I always say, that the agile leader reflects. So that's, one of the major qualities that has to be there. The second one that we chose is that the leader focuses on value, which we ourselves call the focus on the North Star of value. It all needs to be like any leadership, any kind of work needs to be in a service of something, the service to the organization's mission. And the organization's mission is being manifested through adding value. And I think many people forget about it, Arif, don't they? Right? They focus on other things, but they leave the value behind.
Mm. Yeah, no, I think this is again going back to core agility and its origins. As I was trying to talk about earlier, who are you delivering your work to? What purpose is it solving? Is it, are you solving a problem? Are you trying to make the world a better place?
Yeah.
What's the North Star you're aiming for? I think teams of people who are brought together to solve these type of challenges, they need to be inspired
Mm.
by these kind of north stars and these kind of challenges. That comes from leadership. It's your role and responsibility in inspiring your team, inspiring people to come together around a purpose so that they can solve a problem or make the world a better place or improve someone's life or whatever it may be. That's what leadership is all about. So it's critical, I think.
Yeah,
Again,
that's quite true.
everything's critical, but yeah, I think it's core in knowing how to search for that and help your team search for that in order to achieve that vision, that inspiring vision. I think it's important for you
Yeah,
as a
but you
leader.
can't do that without constantly improving and using the test and learn techniques. These are, I
Yes.
think, this is the one that you're most keen on, Arif.
Yeah, yeah, I am. I think that's a to get there. This is what agility is all about, and I think from a leadership point of view, you can really accelerate your leadership style.
Mm.
Excuse me, your leadership effectiveness by adopting this kind of test and learn approach to the work that you do. So
But what does it mean to
question
test
your
and
own. I
learn
think that's
for
what I
a
was going to say.
leader?
Question your own beliefs.
Mm.
Question why you've come to decisions or thoughts that you have. um, Question assumptions you're making. Do the work to be reflective in how you've come to whatever ideas you have, and then bring people into that process. Get your team involved in that so that
Yeah,
they can help you, validate the ideas that you have through whatever mechanisms you use in your organization. Go out and speak to people,
yeah,
put put try something out, get the feedback as soon as possible, and iterate. I've two for two. I think far too common, and we've had a podcast episode on this recently. We
talk about
find
the podcast.
leaders
Yeah,
come from a perspective of believing, having very strongly held views about what they think is the right thing to do and how it should be done. And that can be an emotional conversation for many leaders. But doing the work on yourself to question that, to challenge yourself, to reflect on it, means taking a different approach. It means testing out your assumptions, validating your ideas before you settle on being, feeling that this is the thing that we need to be doing. That's what I would say.
Absolutely, and I think you're quite right there. And the final one I have is that's all underpinned by creating the ability to trust, creating a safe space of trust, dare I say vulnerability, and leaving people autonomy. So why does this underpin it all? Why is this one so important?
Because we talked about unit of the team earlier. And if you're a leader who's tasked with solving problems, getting people together to solve problems, which many leaders are, then typically nowadays in many organizations, you need the skill of multiple people around you in order to do that. And forming a team is
one of the primary responsibilities of a leader, isn't it?
One of the primary responsibilities of yes, and also one of the best ways in order for you to solve the problem is by having a team of highly skilled individuals coming together to do that. And the only way they can be effective is you're able to create an environment where there is trust and autonomy, where, they are trusted to work in a way that best suits their skills, in a way that they are able to problem solve, in a way that they're able to be creative, bring their knowledge and experience to bear in order to help you get to your vision and help you solve the challenges that you feel need solving.
Absolutely. And I think it's, what I always tell people, it's a huge waste if you're the only one thinking. You've got so many great and thinking people around you. It would be an awful waste that I don't know if you can actually afford if you're the only one making decisions, if you're the only one thinking. So the way we help develop leaders is to make sure that everyone is involved in this process and we use everyone's talents. And there you go. All of them are the 4 pillars, the 4 points of agile leadership. And the way we help leaders grow, the way we help other organizations is actually through that, through helping them develop a way of implementing this. We do have a couple nice leadership development programs. You can go to our website, humble.associates, to read more about that. But you can also listen to us, not only on webinars like this, but we do have a popular podcast. So Arif, it premieres every Friday. So what will the next episode of our podcast be about?
You're covering the QR code. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So Leading with Agility, our podcast all about agile leadership. Come and check us out on any of your favorite podcast players. Our next episode is out on Friday. I can't wait for that to go out and get everyone listening and getting your reactions. Please follow, subscribe, so you can get alerted when we release our episodes. It will be covering burnout, high-performing leadership, and some relatively recent news of I'm a football fan, so there we go. So Jurgen Klopp, manager of Liverpool, my favorite team, who I follow, announced bombshell news that he's leaving Liverpool at the end of the season. So and he gave reasons of mental health and burnout. So we're going to be talking a bit about that and what that means for you as leaders out there.
We will.
So
and
check us out and subscribe so you'll get alerted when we release on Friday. Thank you.
It's quite popular. We're getting some good feedback and it seems like people like listening to us. So feel free if you want to hear our buttery voices some more. Another thing I'll say is, in 2 weeks, we're doing another webinar and we're going to explore the topic of burnout a bit more, above and beyond what we talked about on our podcast, and maybe we will get some of your feedback. So tune in 2 weeks. I'm actually on Tuesday, not on Wednesday, but you'll definitely be there for our profile to see it. And for now, that's it. We would like to thank you for coming. We would like to thank you for joining us, and leave us a like, give us a thumbs up. Stay in this space because we're always trying our best to post valuable and interesting stuff for you, our wonderful viewers and listeners.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have
Take
a nice
care.
one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.